Let's start recording. Recording in progress. Whoever joins
In
in, you have to
progress.
catch up, and it's all to Ruben.
Okay, start. All right. So give me the option to share screen.
I can share the screen. Okay. You should have it now.
Okay. So here we go. So we're going to discuss what is intelligent design. So I'm going to go through some basic arguments, pro and con, and give some conclusions. So intelligent design theory that asserts certain features of the universe and of living things are best explained by an intelligent cause, not an undirected materialistic process like natural selection or random mutation. It's an effort to detect whether the apparent design in nature, acknowledged by virtually all biologists, is genuine design or simply the product of an undirected natural process. So early versions of intelligent design are articulated as early as Plato and Aristotle, as did virtually all the founders of modern science, including Isaac Newton, Maxwell. Most of these people were believers in God. The scientific community largely rejected design in the early 20th century after the theory of Darwin claimed to explain the emergence of biological complexity through natural selection, acting on random mutations. Now, near the end of the 20th century, new scientific research has caused a number of scientists and scholars to question Darwinian theory and propose design as the best explanation for the existence of complexity. I just read an article that up to 1/3 of modern biologists have serious questions about Darwinian theory, but three main points I'm going to discuss: the fine-tuning of the universe for human life, the difficulties with Darwinian explanation of the origin of species, particularly the Cambrian explosion, and the lack of intermediate forms in the fossil record. And then finally, the origin of DNA genetic code and the amazing nanotechnology of the human cell. So we'll start with the fine-tuning of the universe. There's at least 20, 30, 40 different forces, which if there was slight change in any one of them, would make it impossible for life to exist. The electromagnetic force was slightly stronger or weaker. Atomic bonds and complex molecules couldn't form. If the value of the gravitational constant, which specifies the intensity of attraction between gravitational bodies, if it was slightly larger, stars would become too hot and burn out. And if it was smaller, stars wouldn't burn. Finally, the cosmological constant, which is also related to the expansion of the universe, has to be tuned to 1 part in 10 to the 120. It's a ridiculously large number. So large, it's really almost impossible to imagine how large that is. One geologist said if there was an additional grain of sand in the universe, it would change everything. The universe is exactly balanced at 0 and flat. To allow molecules to exist, the electron to proton ratio has to be tuned to 1 to the 10 to the 37th. Electron proton mass 1 to 1,836. The electromagnetic force, the right ratio of the nuclear force, the weak force, and the strong force, which binds protons and neutrons together, was changed by 1%. All carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, heavier elements we destroyed. And at another level, there's the planetary fine-tuning. We have to be just in the right relationship to the sun. There's only one circular orbit in our solar system, it's the Earth. Earth is 0.02% off a perfect circle. Every other planet revolves in an oval or an ellipse. If we were in an ellipse, when we were close to the sun, we'd be overheated and burn up. And when we were far away, we'd be freezing cold. The moon is just the right distance, just the right terrestrial crust. The iron core of Earth is acted on by moon's gravity to create Earth's magnetic field that deflects solar radiation. Without this, our atmosphere would be blown off into space. Water is the only known solid that becomes lighter when it freezes, which allows fish to survive in lakes and ponds. Many, many things like this. Top scientists have discussed this. There's Stephen Hawking saying the remarkable fact is that the values of these numbers seems to have been very finely adjusted to make possible development of life. Fred Hoyle, astrophysicist at Cambridge, common sense interpretation of the facts suggests that a super intellect has monkeyed with physics. The numbers one calculates seem to me so overwhelming as to put this conclusion beyond question. Feinstein, a natural law reveals an intelligence of such superiority that, compared with it all, systematic thinking and acting of human beings is utterly insignificant reflection. So fine-tuning can be due to either necessity, but that's unlikely because there's no necessity for the things to be tuned the way they are. Could be chance, but as we've seen, even just a cosmological constant has to be tuned to the power of 10 to 1/20th. One physicist explained that's so fine that if it's like throwing a dart across the entire universe and hitting within 1 or 2 millimeters of a target. So design seems the most likely explanation. Now, one argument against intelligent design is the idea of a multiverse. That's that there's a hypothetical group of multiple universes, and they comprise everything that exists. If you have enough parallel universes, one of them just by random chance will have all the right laws and constants that we need for life to exist. So this ours would just happen to be the right parameters. And here's a little picture of the machine that makes the multiverses. The problem with that is it requires a multiverse machine that produces these universes to be fine-tuned. So it's just basically kicking the problem downstairs. But you still have the same problem. Where does this fine-tuning come from? Now, just to be somebody a beginner, this an anti-theist against the fine-tuning. This is Lawrence Krauss. He was formerly professor at Arizona State University. Theoretical physicist, anti-theist, meaning he totally opposes religion. He tries to attack it wherever he can. At this debate at Wycliffe College, he made a number of statements. He's about the most, actually, I would say the most obnoxious person in a debate I've ever seen. He's just totally obnoxious, demeaning, dismissive.
What's his name?
Anyway, Lawrence Krauss. He's not a really nice guy. He was thrown out of Arizona University because of sexually harassing women. He got enough complaints. They made an agreement with him that he was.
At least he knew what a woman was.
Yeah. He says science has demonstrated creation of universe full of matter from no universe at all. It's not only plausible, likely, and needs no supernatural shenanigans. It's the first time I've seen the word shenanigans used in the debate. It's not fine-tuned for life. Life is fine-tuned for the universe. The idea is that the universe just was what it was, and we just evolved the way we are because that's the way the universe is. What would be the characteristics of a universe which spontaneously arose from no universe, no space, no time, precisely the one we live in? And that's, again, a quarter of like he's talking about yesh mi'ayin without any yesh or ayin either. And what's behind it, our belief should conform to reality, not vice versa. The universe is the way it is, whether we like it or not, which I don't know what that had to do with. And lack of understanding is not evidence for God. It's evidence of lack of understanding. There's an argument I've seen used elsewhere that, people start believing in God when they can't explain things by science. And of course, the God hypothesis, redundant and necessary, lacks explanatory or predictive power, not indicated by any data. This is typical of atheistic approach. I just throw that in there. It sounds painful to listen to him, but you will hear arguments like that. So that's the idea of the fine-tuning of the universe. The second level of intelligent design deals with is the difficulties with Darwin. And this is not unique. There's even new variations of Darwinism that have evolved because of the problems with Darwin theory. It's based on the idea that species have a common origin. Undirected mutations will produce variations, and natural selection will select the most advantageous mutations for survival. One of the largest problems with Darwinian theory is the Cambrian explosion, or the biological Big Bang, as it's called. It's a time of approximately 538 million years ago, the Cambrian period, and practically all major animal phyla started appearing in the fossil record. The problem is they appeared without evidence of ancestors. There's an example of some of the different phyla. All the major animal groups and body plans appeared back then. Pretty much everything that exists today in the animal kingdom appeared right there. Darwin could find no evidence for fossils prior to the Cambrian, and the mystery has continued to perplex paleontologists. The orange dots here are what we actually see at the upper level. The blue dots from an early, as you go down, it's earlier in time, are missing. There are no common ancestors seen. So this is the data versus the theory. The data is on the upper level, everything appeared. The theory was there's supposed to be this blue dots in a branching tree, but there was no branching tree found so far. Now, there's various theories of why that happened. The main is the artifact theory. The first part is we just haven't found the fossils yet. We have to keep looking. If we eventually look, we'll eventually find them. The second one is that the fossils were so small or soft, they didn't appear in the fossil record. They just vanished. The problems with that is, first, that an extensive search to date has not found the ancestors, even though many, many large fossil finds have been found with good, clear Cambrian strata. And when you go deeper down, you don't find anything. At least one small, soft, multi-celled sponge fossil has been found of only 4 cells. So it tends to suggest that maybe it's not a matter of just being small or soft. Darwin himself said that he was worried about this, but he hoped that he adhered to the artifact theory. It would just take time. As he said, I look at the natural geological record as a history of the world imperfectly kept. On this view, the difficulties above discussed are greatly diminished. That is, once more fossils are found. A large discovery was made about 20 years ago in China near Chengjiang. You can see the little green dot upper right. The fossil finds increased the problems of the Cambrian explosion. The time of the explosion was reduced to about 25% was thought earlier. Many more morphological forms are found, but no earlier forms. So it actually just increased the number of phylae. In the year 2000, a major paleontologist who explored that Changchang find was J.Y. Chen. He described the Cambrian fossils as a reverse of Darwin. He said Darwin should be like this. You start at the bottom. As you go up, it branches out. He said instead, it's like this. They're all at the bottom and just go straight up. An interesting little discussion happened. Someone asked him, Professor Chen, fascinating lecture, but aren't you a little nervous about expressing skepticism about Darwinian evolution, coming as you are from a communist country? There was silence, and then Dr. Chen answered, well, in our country, we can question Darwin, just not the government. In America, you can question the government, but you can't question Darwinism. This just shows the danger of questioning Darwinism, that in 2004, Stephen Meyer, he's a originally geophysicist and later got a PhD in the philosophy of science. He submitted an article on ID to the Proceedings of the Biological Society of Washington, which is one of the major societies. Anyway, the article was published, and then people started ganging up on the editor for allowing such an outrageous paper to be published. They took away his office, was told not to come to a journal meeting because they couldn't guarantee his safety. A senator did intervene to prevent him from being thrown out of the NIH, but he eventually had to stop work because they made it clear they weren't going to let him do anything. Another well-known paleontologist who has several species named after him, Gunther Beckley from the State Museum of Natural History, Stuttgart, he actually made on the anniversary of Darwin, I think the 200th anniversary, he made a very large exhibit showing that Darwin, on one end of a scale, his one book outweighed all the other piled up books of intelligent design. His mistake, he said, was he started reading those books, and he actually became a supporter of ID. So he was told, after he announced this, he was told he wasn't welcome at the museum. He was pressured to leave, and the same thing, he realized he couldn't get any science done. He had to leave. So yeah, you can criticize the government, but you can't criticize Darwin. A rebuttal of ID was one lecture I saw by Kenneth Miller. He's actually a religious Christian. but he feels that the fossil record does support Darwinism. He gave an example that supposedly there's whales and dolphins are believed to have started on land and then moved into the water because they're both mammals. But no intermediate form could be found. However, apparently there isn't an intermediate form as shown that skeleton. I can't remember the name of it. But he gave that example that we just have to look hard enough. Another one was there's some people said because humans only have 46 chromosomes, whereas chimpanzees, primates have 48, that it's evidence we weren't derived from them. But what's been found is that one of the chromosome pairs actually fused, and he gave an example of that the fused pair is exactly where it was thought to be, which suggests a shared ancestry with primates. So that's one example of disagreement. I find the most compelling evidence is the DNA genetic code and the nanotechnology of the cell. How are we doing? Yeah. I have this, I'm going to play this little short video.
Okay.
It's about 2 minutes.
We don't see anything.
I don't see it, Ruben.
Can you see it?
No.
No, nothing.
Nothing. All right, let me try something else. Let me try
Maybe
something
some,
else.
because
Hang
I was
on.
wondering, even presentation itself got hung up a little bit early. Oh, now we see something.
Hang on a second. Let me see if I can find it. Okay. No, not this one. 1 second. Yeah. To the cell. Okay, I'm going to give this a try. Stop share. Okay. Can you see it? Can you see it now?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, Karen will love that. Look at this, Karen. It's a new world now. Molecules, DNAs.
Except that it's an artist render. I mean, it's beautiful and it's awesome, but it's an artist's rendering.
Yeah.
So we can't just leap in and say, oh, wow, this is the total answer. We have to take it within context.
No, it's they explain this is done by a Yale expert on this, and they said it's actually when it shows the DNA being copied, it's actually real time. They've actually looking under microscopically that this is the estimate of how fast it actually goes.
And the figures? Is this a photograph of?
This is a schematic depiction.
Okay.
Oh, so it's not what they actually saw on the microscope, no?
So that's a peptide that's going off now?
The peptides are the
It's
amino
acid,
acids
right?
of peptides.
Amino acids
They're
going to
linked
become
together.
protein.
This is the RNA that's going to make a protein. It's going out of the nucleus through a pore. This is true nanotech. I mean, unbelievable nanotech.
But Ruben, he's saying he's showing that as a proof of intelligent design, not the randomity of Darwin.
This is a cutaway. It occurs inside this complex.
So what are each of these three-pronged delivery
Huh?
devices doing?
Yeah, it's these things that are coming in to attach. This is the RNA on top, and these are just random floating transfer RNAs, which just match like a magnet to two magnets together. They just match, they're fitted in, and
They go to
the
become
amino acids, that pink amino acid at the end, they're attached together. And apparently, these don't happen naturally. You need this enzymatic process in the ribosome that actually attaches the amino acids. And this is about how fast it actually goes. This is real time. So that's the RNA blue on top, and here's the protein, the pink on the bottom.
Yeah, the tRNA builds the protein. It reads the messenger RNA that's created from the DNA.
Yeah, the tRNA reads the messenger RNA, and attached to the tail of the tRNA are these little amino acids, and they're clipped together like little magnets or little Legos, and that's what makes the protein. This is the Golgi body that shapes the final protein. It has to be activated.
And this is all inside one cell?
One cell, yes.
Okay.
But again, Robin, that's not the real microscope photograph. It's a rendition of the process. No,
It's a schematic.
This is the new ride at Epcot.
Yeah,
So that's basically the first one.
it's from a
And
matrix.
there's one more which you just have to see because it's almost unbelievable.
Wow.
Ruvain, how can you see this and not believe in Hashem?
Look at this guy marching along. I think it's commercial right now, Roy, no? We can hear it.
We have no sound.
No sound?
No sound.
Oh, okay. Well, I will explain then. I'll take over the action of narrator. So here's the DNA. This is created by Drew Berry from if you unwind the two strands, then you can actually copy the strands run in opposite directions. So when they're copied, this is the DNA being copied. There's two strands being unwound. The blue machine is helicase. This is spinning at the speed of a jet engine, over 2,000 RPM. And it's unwinding the DNA strands. One strand runs the opposite direction, so it has to be copied in sections. That's the one peeling off on the top. And this is happening multiple times, zillions of your cells.
What Roy, you mentioned how the guy who doesn't believe in God, what is his explanation to that? I mean, there must be rational.
What's that?
The somebody who doesn't believe in God, he'll say, no, it's given a zillion trillion years, it can't randomly happen like that. That's what they say?
Right, right. This shows the DNA being bundled together and wrapped up on chromatin. And you can see it's like a pulley system that wraps it up and pulls it very tight. And there's the chromatin. And you'll see now an actual video of cell division.
Real video or rendition?
So this is an actual video of a dividing cell. So there's an equator. The chromosomes are lining up. You can see the red dots. They have to line up along. And then they pulled apart and make two new daughter cells.
Ruben, please do not misgender the cells.
Oh.
Offspring cells.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I can't tell which one it is, Anyway.
Wow.
Okay, so only one question.
So here's a single chromosome, and microtubules are necessary for it to separate. So there's hundreds of different proteins working together to get this all working.
Wow.
Can you hear the video now? Can you hear the video or no?
No.
No.
Yes?
We're like in a Sinai. We see the sound.
No, can't see. Okay, I'll dictate it then. So these are microtubules, and they're made at one side, deconstruct the other side. There's a chemical signal at the end. There's red molecules that prevent the chromosome from multiplying. When the tension's just right, these proteins are activated, and the suppressor proteins don't turn off. They're just walk away so that the process can be activated. And look at these little guys. They actually walk along. This is a motor. This is actually what it looks like. It's a schematic. They have to have long legs to step over kinesins, the blue things that are moving the other way.
How do they know that actually that stuff happens?
Anyway, that just shows an example of some of the nanotech that's going on inside our body every day. It's almost unbelievable. There's actually nanotech which carries packets of things back and forth. There's other videos you can watch online showing how the ATPase system that activates it's really nanotech. It's just completely unbelievable. All right, let me go to the next one. So
Now, Reuven, a small question. Does these this process that you showed, does it happen every day in our cells? Or is
every
it
day,
just
every day, constantly.
every
He said
every
50 to 60 billion cells die every day. There's trillions of cells in your body. 50 to 60 billion die every day, and they have to be replaced. So some probably between 10 and 50 billion times a day that will process you saw is happening.
Gotcha. Okay.
Wow.
So where did the information come from? As you can see, the DNA in that picture is just like a computer code. So Stephen Meyer explains complex sequences have an irregular, improbable arrangement that defies expression by a simple formula or algorithm. A specification is a match or correspondence between event or object and independently given pattern or set of functional requirements. Watson, who discovered DNA, one of the discoverers, explains that a specification it biologically describes a function. It has to have a specific function, just like the words in a page have specific meaning. Symbols or sequences are highly complex, which means they're improbable and irregular, and they're specified, which means they have a specific direction and meaning, are always produced by intelligent agents rather than by chance. There's a vera causa principle that historical scientists seeking to explain an event in the past should postulate only causes sufficient to produce the effect in question and are known to exist by observation in the present. So you don't want to imagine some new thing that never happened before that happened in the past. You want to say, I see something now and I can extrapolate to the past. So DNA, Bill Gates explains DNA is like a computer program, but far, far more advanced than any software we've ever created. And no computer program was ever created except by a conscious intelligence. That's the idea of intelligent design. One objection is there could be random DNA mutations explaining a new species. At least one biologist at MIT looked at this to see how probable it is, and he found that taking the possibility of variance into account, the probability of achieving a functional sequence of amino acids in several known proteins at random is roughly 1 chance in 10 to the 65, power 65.
Dr. Wolf, I don't think the presentation is moving forward. I still see slide 24. Did you move along?
Yeah, let's see. Let's try it again. make sure Can you see this now?
Mhm. And Vera Causa.
Vera Causa principle.
Very cause. Okay, you good. Okay. So let me. What is this? It's not. Here we go. From current slide. There we go. All right. So, yeah, Bill Gates explains DNA is like a computer program, but more advanced than any software ever created, and no computer program was ever created except by conscious intelligence. And the Vera Causa principle for historical extrapolation is that you have to explain an event in the past based on things you see in the present. And no computer program was ever made from random action of nothingness to nothingness. And this just explains that the likelihood of creating a new protein is very, very small. Mutations of computer code invariably degrade the information. It doesn't create new computer code. You don't turn one computer game into another. I just love this particular thing. It's the atheist Richard Dawkins wrote that if you give enough monkeys and typewriters, maybe some of you have heard this, you can make Shakespeare eventually. So he gave an example of a single sentence. Methinks it's like a weasel. Which is these guys are looking at clouds. And one says it looks like a whale, one says it looks like a camel, and Hamlet says, I think it looks like a weasel. So mathematicians have worked out how long this would take. It turns out the entire universe would burn out before any primates completed Shakespeare. I actually calculated it out. A typical old typewriter has 44 keys, so the chances of getting 28 in a row is 44 to the power of 28, which is 10 to the 46th. So if a million monkeys typed 1 tap per second from the Big Bang, it would take 10 to the 46 divided by a million taps, or roughly 10 to the 40 seconds to produce that single sentence of Shakespeare, which would be 100 billion trillion times the history of the universe. Except the Big Bang. There have been about 10 to the 17 seconds since the Big Bang, and in another 10 to the 19 seconds, estimated the sun will expand into a red giant, engulf the Earth, and burn up all life on Earth. The Earth would actually become part of the sun.
Wow.
One thesis is new information came from existing gene networks. This was a response to one of Mayer's papers on intelligent design, saying that there could be new gene regulatory networks which are already there and making new information. The problem is, where did the information in them come from? It just begs the question, kicks it downstairs to an earlier time. So we're almost done. So researchers have tried to explain the information in terms of some sort of organizational principle that DNA could glom together. It shows two other people have argued. The bottom one, our task is find an algorithm or natural law that leads to information. But Stephen Myers, and this is the next to last slide, explains this suggestion betrays confusion on 2 counts. First of all, scientific laws do not generally explain or cause natural phenomena. They describe them. So Newton's law of gravitation doesn't explain the attraction of planetary bodies, just describes it. And laws describe deterministic relationships. 2 magnets have to come together. Things have to fall towards the Earth. Laws describe patterns in which the probability of each successive event, given the previous event and the action of the law, becomes inevitable. But information is the opposite. Information mounts as improbabilities multiply. And Michael Polanyi, the chemist, explains, whatever may be the origin of a DNA configuration, it can function as a code only if its order is not due to the forces of potential energy. It must be as physically indeterminate as the sequence of words on a printed page. So the final thoughts of Dr. Myers, one of the main arguments he gets is intelligent design is religion masquerading as a science. The answer is they're confusing the basis of the theory of intelligent design with the possible implications of intelligent design. The basis of the theory is the scientific evidence and the use of a method of scientific reasoning. Most scientists assume methodological naturalism, which asserts that for a hypothesis or theory to qualify as scientific, it must invoke only naturalistic, materialistic causes. By this definition, ID is not scientific, but even if you grant this definition, it does not follow that some non-scientific or metaphysical hypotheses may not constitute a better explanation. And as he explains, when it comes to historical science or historical things, theories of past events can claim neither be most probably true or empirically adequate. At best, they can achieve the status of the most probably true or adequate among an artificially limited set of options. So that's my final thought. This is my actual final thought. The first positive mitzvah is, in the words of Rambam, to know there's a first being which caused the existence of all beings. The knowledge of this principle is a positive command. As it is said, I am the eternal, your God. So, sorry, there's so much stuff in there. It's a very complicated topic, but I tried to summarize it as, like I said, the issue of the precise tuning of the universe, the problem with the fossil record, and finally, which I find most convincing, is that we have nanotechnology in our bodies with DNA that is an unbelievably complex program. It's actually far beyond the ability of our minds to even come up with, which when I actually think about it, it makes me a little scared, because most of us, when we're faced with somebody who's much smarter than us, get a little nervous. When I was a doctor in the old days, I worked in a working class neighborhood, and some of the people used to say, "Doctor, I don't want you experimenting on me." I thought, what are you talking about, experimenting? It took me a long time to figure it out. They feel like my intelligence and my training, I'm so far above them, and that I could just like play around with them, start doing things with them. And they wouldn't know the difference. I can try out new drugs. They don't know. They're just telling me right up front, look, I know you're a smart guy, but don't play around with me. It's the same reaction I get looking at this DNA and the microtechnology, the nanotechnology. Is like I find it spooky. An intelligence at that level is it's awesome. I mean, that's what they talk. Yiras Hashem. It's actually almost scares me.
Not just this, also, there are microorganisms. What about their cells? They're even like 1 billion times smaller, probably, than our cells.
And they have a lot of the same nanotechnology inside them also.
Yeah, I mean, where does this even end? Does it have an end? Is there some kind of a dimension or a not a dimension, but a godel? How do you say godel? Size. Is there a size that is like an end to all of that can be smaller than that? I mean,
yeah.
No.
Well, interesting. There's a new branch of evolutionary theory. I try to remember the name of it, but basically the idea, part of the idea of it is that there are some, it's extended evolutionary synthesis. One of their ideas is that some evolutionary changes are not necessarily completely coded in the DNA. There's some environmental things as well. There's a scientist and philosopher, Rupert Sheldrake. I don't know if you ever heard of him, but he posits that we actually have, there's what we call morphic fields around us, which even from our grandparents and parents and previous generations affect how we feel and how we think. He gave examples of many studies in which, like animals, there was a case of mice who were trying to learn a new maze in an experimental building, and they went for many days or weeks without getting it. Suddenly, one day, one mouse in one of these little cages figured out the thing, and by the next day, all the mice in the whole building were able to get it. There's another case in England of a bird called titmouse, and they were constantly trying to change the milk bottle caps so that they couldn't dig it off. There was one that really they stuck with. They couldn't figure it out. Finally, somewhere in England, in like South England, one of these titmouses flipped the thing, figured out how to get the cap off. And within a day or two, every titmouse in England knew how to do it. And it's not just there.